Hello and welcome to the Earthborne Games Podcast. I'm your host, Anders Carlson. We're back. It's been like 4 solid weeks since we've had a real Earthborne podcast, and even longer since we've seen Evan. Welcome back, Evan.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Great
to
to
the new
see
father.
you.
Thank you. Yeah. I have to think that I don't look too, I don't know, bedraggled from lack of sleep and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've seen my face so much I can't tell anymore. So
You've seen your own face so much? Yeah.
well, just in the mirror or in the webcam here. So
That's right.
you have your own kind of you see your face in the mirror and then you see a picture of yourself and it's way different and it's like what happened? Why is it so? I don't know.
It's right,
I've been
like
flipped horizontally.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
And I guess for you, it's more of a gradual transition from non-father to father, bedraggled father.
Yeah. And I just get accustomed to it slowly. So.
Well, I just want to say you look better than ever.
Oh, thanks.
How is it going as a father? I haven't talked to you.
It's going good. It's pretty wild. I mean, total life changer, and we've had plenty of people coming by to visit, and a lot of late nights and weird sleeping schedules, and she's feeding like every 2 to 4 hours, so it's just kind of like a nonstop thing. It's way harder for Megan than it is for me because I don't have to get up as much in the middle of the night.
Absolutely true.
As she does. So yeah.
What was the last thing that made you go just fall in love with your baby? What was the last thing she did?
Actually, when we were having dinner just now, when I was watching her while Megan was making dinner, and she's just starting to smile now. So, and it's gone from, I think she's just practicing facial expressions to actually recognizing smiles or facial expressions in me or in Megan and then reflecting them back. So at least I think it seems like
kind of soon.
She's now actively smiling rather than just like farting or something, making like a weird expression.
She's also still doing that.
Yeah. So I think just seeing that while I was just watching The Simpsons with her laying on my chest, while waiting for dinner, I guess.
Yeah, it's the best.
So
everyone should have a child. Yeah. That's what I say. Just one. It's good to have you back, Evan. We're going to do something a little different with you tonight. Is it because you're swamped with work? What are you going to be doing?
Well, I just have I have a good flow going, and I've been really able to unexpectedly, even with the child, crank out illustrations weekly. So I would just like to keep that pace, and it just seems like it'd be something fun to try for the listener or the people who watch the podcast rather than listen.
Yeah, what he's referring to is we're going to have Evan drawing, and we're going to be watching his process throughout the whole show tonight. And he may not be chiming in as much, but we'll be watching. So if you're not on YouTube watching this, flip over there if you can. If not, it'll still be very entertaining. We're not going to probably comment on what he's doing too much, but if we do, we'll try to explain what's going on.
Yeah.
Do you want to start that right away?
Sure, I can. Yeah.
Share your screen.
I'm halfway through something, so
let's introduce the other guys first. Andrew Fisher's back from Tanzania. Good to have you back, Fisher.
Thank you. Yep, it's good to be back. It was an awesome trip, but like the traveling was pretty exhausting. So I'm kind of just glad to be back in the flow of things now.
Are we going to get into that later during stuff we've done?
Oh yeah, no, I mean that was kind of my signature thing is previewing. So more details of my Tanzania trip later, everybody.
Oh, don't turn that dial. Whatever that means. The Gen Zers are wondering. All right, Andrew Navarro's here as well. Good to have you back.
I am here as well. Thank you.
Tried and true.
Good to be back.
Guest.
Yes. So last episode, our last half episode, I promised we'd be back the following week. We did not do that.
Lied.
We were too busy I did, unfortunately. But these 2 weeks between podcasts go so fast. Like, I think it's just fine.
It's
Also
just-
partially related to my aforementioned exhausting travel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
took a little longer than you hoped to get back.
Yeah.
We have
But
some
I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere.
Our listeners and viewers are very kind. I didn't receive any hate emails. I hope you guys didn't either.
Nope.
Man, I already want to comment on what Evan's doing. It's pretty sick.
Actually, I can make a comment. Is there any way you can mute me? Because I suppose I can just go back to Chrome here, but I didn't
You
want
can
I'll
to
mute
mute you.
yourself.
interrupt.
I'll mute him. Bye.
Okay, you can mute me. All right. Bye.
Man, do you think he can still hear us?
Oh, I'm sure he can. Not if
Oh.
you can hear us.
Now we start the blow by blow commentary on his
Man, what
on
the
his
hell is he
drawing.
doing? Evan just wrote yes into his art. He can hear us. Just sending subliminal messages throughout the show. You guys got to switch over to YouTube.
Fisher, do you want to say what this card is mechanically? It's a pretty awesome card.
Oh yeah, no, actually, this is one of my favorite cards in the game, so I'm kind of excited that he's drawing it. So this card is called Reverb Locket. Kind of the idea is it's this locket that. Did you actually end up writing flavor text for this one? It's a little more complicated, so I don't know if we had room.
I don't think
Do you
there's room for flavor text, but yeah, this thing that like effectively captures your memories and allows you to kind of like relive them in a way.
Yeah, it kind of resonates them to you to help kind of enhance, those memories that can kind of slip away. And so in the game mechanics itself, you can imprint one of your moment cards onto this piece of gear when you play it. And then this piece of gear lets you play that moment card multiple times. This is actually inspired by one of my favorite magic cards of all time called Isochron Scepter that lets you cast spells multiple times. Also a slightly infamously broken magic card. But our game is balanced a bit differently than Magic, and so we can we have the limiting mechanism of the tokens, the limited use tokens on our cards, and so we were able to kind of balance it a little bit better than hopefully than Isochron Scepter was.
It's a pretty great card, though. I like taking it a lot as an outside interest.
Oh yeah, it's a
Just
great outside
splashing it
interest
in.
inclusion.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
It is a mainstay in, I think my two favorite decks are an Explorer deck and an Artificer deck, and it is a mainstay in my Explorer deck. And I think, Andrew, you got to see a bit of what my Explorer deck can do when we were playing through the finales.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I contributed very little in that last play session, so I was really glad you were there. Yeah, like I absorbed some damage and drew some aggro from time to time, but
yeah, you were managing the board.
Yeah, I was doing some stuff.
Well,
it was very good.
I'm just mesmerized by this artwork, though. So if I just stop talking at some point in the show, just like clap your hands and I'll try to snap out of it. It's awesome.
Back to us,
yeah. It's awesome. It's like close up on. If you're not watching this, it's some gloved hands, and Evan is doing some really like expert shading on it and holding this amazing pendant. What is it called again?
The Reverb Locket.
Reverb Locket. It's a locket, not a pendant. Super cool. Do you think this is going to take the whole show to? Are you going to be working on this one piece? Do you think?
He said he might finish and then pick up with another one.
Oh, awesome!
So we'll see.
That's
pretty
cool.
Close. It looks pretty good to me.
Oh my God. Was this all Evan? Is this all you?
This is. I think originally it was kind of based on one of Joe's concepts, but then Evan built upon it a lot. It's quite different than that. How it started out.
Super cool.
And then composition and everything and stuff we talked about like just on Monday.
Wow, so cool. All right, well, we've got a great show ahead. Got a bunch of listener questions that have piled up over the past month. And we're going to be talking work stories and some cool stuff we're into. But let's kick it off with a question from Gorth via YouTube. And Gorth wrote us saying, I have a curiosity regarding your approach to game balance in the expansion, Legacy of the Ancestors, and in any other potential future expansions. It is my understanding that players can complete the core campaign and then spend unlimited days exploring the map and earning any available side quest rewards before starting the expansion campaign. Is the expansion campaign intended to be balanced around Rangers having done this, or is it balanced for Rangers who have only played to the end of the core campaign story and then immediately began the expansion story? Is it possible to play for Rangers who have not gone through the core campaign story at all? Do you expect a large power differential between these three cohorts? I would be interested to hear your thoughts about tuning the difficulty of expansion campaigns, since it sounds like players may not be on equal footing heading into them, as you can expect them to be when starting the core campaign. Thanks for your wonderful work. Big question.
Yeah. So I can talk a bit about this topic in general. I think we've covered it a bit before, but all kind of in disparate parts, so we can kind of talk about it as a complete picture here. So first off, yes, to an extent, you can complete the campaign and then continue playing for a time. We've talked about potentially limiting people to the number of days that are listed on the campaign tracker, but right now you're not necessarily hard capped. After the story ends, you can still kind of explore the valley. Some things may have changed due to your actions, but the valley will still hopefully be there. So you can spend a bunch of days helping more people and unlocking more rewards. And you will be bringing all of those into the expansion with you. To kind of the question about, is it possible for Rangers who haven't played through the core campaign to play in the expansion? Yes and no. So yes, you will be able to buy the expansion and jump right in if you wanted to just jump right into that part of the story. But no, you will not just be starting it with a starting Ranger deck. Instead, when you jump into that experience, we are going to be providing you with kind of a story so far recap where we kind of tell you what's happened, what you might have missed, and allow you to make a couple key decisions that may impact your story going forward. We'll also unlock a certain number of cards for you, kind of what we consider the optimal number of unlocked cards for you to go into the expansion with. So you will be starting on a footing that we deem optimal and balanced to enjoy the expansion. So kind of to that optimal and balanced, as far as power level of people coming out of the first campaign, yes, it can be disparate for some people who have completed more or some people who have like unlocked less content. That being said, I think we talked about in a previous episode how we're kind of handling unlocking cards and progression throughout the campaign. Our game has a bit less kind of linear progression than you might expect in other RPGs. You're not going to be seeing quite as much, like just straight stat buffs. Like you're playing Diablo and you get like your like next level of gear, and it's just a objective improvement over the gear you currently have equipped. A lot of our progression doesn't really work like that, where it's just kind of this strict improvement. Instead, we're kind of focusing on extra utility, differences in kind, and a just kind of broader applicability of the cards you're unlocking. So they are definitely more useful, and your power level does go up, but it's not like quite a linear progression. Additionally, in our expansions, we're going to be trying to kind of create different types of challenges so that as you head into different areas surrounding the valley, you're going to kind of need to swap in and out cards out of your deck and kind of re-equip. So we're looking to create challenges that require you to change and alter your deck and your approach to the game more than challenges that just require you to have, your +1 reverb blocket and your +2 reverb blocket and your +3 reverb blocket, like you might see in a more linear progression. So yes, there will be power level differentials between different play groups based on how much you've completed, but I don't think it will be as large as you may be worrying. And also, to a certain extent, I'm kind of okay with it. Just like you might grind in an RPG to take on content later and make it a little easier for you. Similarly, here, you can grind and unlock everything to make future content easier for you. And that's kind of your choice as to how you approach the content.
I would also add, I'm fond of saying this because it's true. I know some people don't like to do this type of thing, but you will have all the cards in your possession. You can do whatever you want with them. if you go to the campaign and you're like, I just want to choose these cards, these reward cards. It doesn't really matter if I actually did them or not. That is totally fine. No one is going to come to your house and stop you. I won't anyway. Maybe someone will, but I won't. No one on this podcast will. So you can always play how you want, use the cards you want. It is up to you. But if you do want to play like strictly by the rules, yeah, like Fisher said, you're not gonna be left wanting, I don't think. And I think it's also like as you were speaking, Fisher, it made me think of one instance when I was playtesting where I'd gotten a fair number of reward cards, and I swapped some in and swapped some other stuff out, and I whatever good was happening with my deck, I undid it somehow. So just having reward cards is good, but you also need to make your choices and still keep your deck running smoothly. Just slotting stuff in, it's only there's only 30 cards in your deck, so you can, if there's something that's good that's happening in your deck, even with the base game cards, it can be kind of dangerous to disrupt it just by throwing in reward cards from experience.
Okay, everybody, there was
I'm gonna mute myself again. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, everybody, there was some technical difficulties there. Andrew had to move rooms. We're back. Hopefully everything goes smoothly now. And our next question comes from Mark via email. And it is, what is the total number of employees / independent contractors working on the game design / development, etc.? How many people are working on this game?
So yeah, this is an easy one. So there's 4 staff, the 3 of us, and then also Corey DeVore, who was on the podcast a couple episodes ago, who's part-time. And then 18 contractors so far. And most of those are artists. I want to say it's 10 to 12 artists. And then some writers, designers. That's pretty much it. So pretty small group, I think, I would say, especially for a project as vastly scoped as this one is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the sheer amount of art, the sheer amount of unique art we're doing, like that number of artists is pretty low, right?
It's extremely low. Yeah, it's about I would say at least a fifth, if not less, than what we do at our former employer when we'd have something of this size.
Wow.
But Evan counts for like 30 artists just by himself, so we're almost that number.
Yeah,
that's why he doesn't have to talk right now.
Yeah, extremely prolific. Like the amount of work that we're churning out here in these last few weeks is pretty phenomenal.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, 22 people. All right, next question from Darren. Darren asks, I really appreciate the effort to cut plastic out of the box. I also generally sleeve all of my cards in my games. Would sleeving Earthborne Rangers be hypocritical or antithetical to its mission? What other recommendations do you have for preserving the game for as long as possible? I feel like we've had a similar question. Do we have a better answer?
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's worth reiterating just in case you missed an episode or weren't listening at that moment when we spoke. No, I don't think it's hypocritical to sleeve your Earthborne Rangers, your copy of Earthborne Rangers. I think hopefully at some point in the near future, we will have some kind of better, maybe alternate material for sleeves that's not just plastic. But until that day, I think sleeving's just fine. I think something you could do, though, and something that I intend to do, is not purchase new sleeves. I have plenty of sleeves that are that are being used for games right now that I am not playing. And if I know gamers, I would imagine that you're probably like me. You probably have a game that's sleeved somewhere that you have sleeved just in case you play it, but it's been in that just in case state for a couple of years. And you can just let that go and use those sleeves for Earthborne Rangers instead. That's my plan anyway. It's just to use ones I have already. So I think that's something you can do. Also, storing the game in a dry place so it doesn't get mildewy over time is probably a good way of prolonging the life of your game. And but eventually, like all physical objects, it will degrade, and that's okay. It gives a character.
Use our Earthborne branded white gloves every time you handle your game.
That's right. That was our solution last time. I love that solution.
Yeah, sleeve your hands, not your cards.
Sleeve your hands, not your cards.
That's not a real product. Don't go to our website looking for the Earthborne white gloves.
Or go over to your parents' basement and find your old baseball cards, Pokemon cards, whatever you have. I'm sure there's plenty of sleeves. Get some of those big, the ones for the real important cards you had to screw together. Would those fit?
Oh, I get some top loaders.
Yeah. Cool. All right, our next question comes from Angerine Dream, a repeat questioner. They ask, will the card lists be released before the game hits the shelves so that we can get constructing decks online and sharing them on the Discord like folks do on rings.db/arkham.db, etc.? Anyone?
I think that's up to Andrew.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question. We have we were contacted during the Kickstarter by someone who was interested in doing a deck builder for Earthborne Rangers, and I'm all for it. So I feel like we could either work with someone specifically and give them the images, and then they could port those in, or we could potentially release them to the community at large so they can start doing it. They're going to get out there eventually, so it's just a question of when we do it. But I think it makes a lot of sense to do. There's no reason to not do it, to not let people have official assets, because you're going to be able to get them one way or another. So yeah, it's just a question of how we do it, I suppose. Sharing on Discord could make sense, or we could just have it on our website. That probably even makes more sense.
Does this mean
I don't know. What do you think,
PDFs?
What would be the best way of doing that? Yeah, or you could just, instead of PDFs, like something that we don't necessarily want to give you something that you'll want to turn around and print, but something that looks good on a screen.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be that high resolution. I'm not sure the best way of going about that. What do you think, Fisher?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I guess this is something we've been so focused on just getting the game ready for print.
Yes.
We haven't focused a lot on kind of exactly what our full launch looks like and what some of our online and digital tools look like. It is a priority we have, especially for teaching and on your side, learning the game. We do have some priorities for designing some tools to help with that, creating some content to help with that online. But we haven't really thought this through yet. So it's something we'll have to consider. So we will get back to you on exactly how and when we will kind of share that so that you all can start constructing decks. But I will put it on our list.
Yeah, it might just make sense, since we're planning on having doing something with Tabletop Simulator, just having the images there, that people will be able to just extract.
Yeah, I can then harvest.
Yeah, that might be a good and easy way of doing it too. But yes, we'll figure that out.
Cool. All right. Next question from Artemis via Discord. How much of the encounter deck can we expect to see at once? Is there a percentage the team feels comfortable leaving unseen? How often should characters/encounters stay hidden to make each play different?
I think that's a good question.
That is a good question.
I don't understand.
When you play, you create this path deck that represents all the things you can encounter. And that's a combination of some terrain cards that are kind of repeated whenever you're in that type of terrain, and then some unique cards for the unique location that you're in. And so then this deck, you draw a few cards from it, and they come into play. And these are the cards you're kind of encountering right now. But the rest of that deck is hidden to you. And if you leave the location before you've drawn all of that deck, and ideally, most of the time, you're going to leave the location before you draw all of that deck, you will not see it all. So based on the types of cards, you'll have a higher chance of seeing them. Most of our terrain cards, you'll see every terrain card before the end of the game. There's only 12 terrain cards in each set. And you're going to traverse most types of terrain many times. So you'll kind of get used to these sets and see them and kind of understand the frequency of seeing different things. So you kind of know what to expect and know how to prepare yourself for entering that type of terrain. But the cards you might not see as much are those unique cards. In development, we used to refer them as the landmarks, but they're just the sets unique to those locations. Because there's, often only, unique copies of these cards for these given locations, and they're shuffled into a deck, you may or may not ever see them. And so one thing I was trying to process and how to answer this is Artemis mentions, how much can we expect to see at once? And so I was trying to kind of figure out what at once kind of means in this situation. We definitely don't usually want the whole deck on the play field all at once, if that's what we're talking about at once. That's a pretty overwhelming experience.
Uh-huh.
It can happen on occasion if you get really overwhelmed and stuck in an area. And in 4-player games, you do see more cards at once because each player is drawing a card. And so you see more of an area, and you do more in one round than like in a solo game. You're going to play a lot more rounds at a given location, just because you have fewer actions. 4 people have 4 times the actions that a solo player does. But if we're looking at what you see at once to mean more, how much are you going to see in one playthrough of the campaign? I think we're okay with a certain number of cards remaining unseen. We're trying to make a really big world and make you feel like you're exploring this unknown valley to a degree. And some of that feeling of exploration and size requires you to not see and be tired of everything and feel like you're exploring and finding things, even on, session 25 of the game, that you're still discovering things. And that requires you to not see everything. So ideally, we do want some percentage unseen, at least of our landmark cards, even in a whole playthrough. So I didn't answer the question incredibly specifically. There's a certain amount of variance depending on the part of the valley. Some areas of the valley, we expect you to see everything. And in fact, missions require you to find everything. And then some areas are dangerous enough that you're not going to spend much time there. And we actually expect you to maybe never even find it. There's a couple hidden treasures hidden throughout the valley that I think only certain dedicated groups will find. And so it kind of depends on the content and how core it is to the story versus core it is to that kind of exploration experience. So yeah, slightly rambling answer. But,
good answer.
No specific concrete percentage I can feed you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it really depends on how you play the game too. Like if you play it like I played it when I first started doing my play test, I was, sprinting through the valley. I was trying to
Yeah, you made
spend.
some progress.
Yeah, I was just because that was my goal. I just was like, I just want to see how far I can get because I mean, I had designer knowledge, so I knew what was coming, and I was like, well, I got to see what happens if I try to get as far away from that thing that I know is happening in the valley as possible, and then work my way back, and what that would be like. So when I was the first few sessions that I was playing solo, I would effectively get to a location, set up the path deck, draw a couple cards, and then just hammer on through. Just suffer fatigue, get through the location, just go. So I'd be drawing like maybe 2 or 3 cards from the path deck before I got out of there, which is pretty atypical. But you can play that way. So if you're playing that way, you're going to miss a lot. But if you decide to take your time each location, delve into that path deck, and really like try to discover everything that's there, like you can hang out in one spot and just get through the entire thing. It can be challenging, like Fisher was saying. It can get kind of overwhelming if you have too many things on the board at once. But that's the way to play it too. So it's really up to you. I also think it's worth noting that the valley set, in addition to those landmarks that you go when you go to pivotal locations, the valley set when you go to the non-pivotal locations is you take 3 cards from that set, shuffle them into the path deck. Those 3 cards are random, so there's a very good chance that there are things that you will just not see if you draw the end up drawing the same 3 random cards out of that set all the time, or but I think that's kind of fun too, because there are some things that I saw a lot when I played, and there are some things that I never saw when I was playing. And then there are some things like when Fisher and I were playing that we just saw over and over and over again. But it was really fun to have that happen over because it's like, oh guys, things like stalking us. So it's
that thing was ruthless.
It was, but it was pretty cool. Like it still created fun moments where you can tell the story about this this thing that keeps like popping up over and over again. So yeah, no, there's like Fisher was saying, we didn't. This isn't something where we like mathed out the percentage of what we want to be seen and unseen, because it's entirely possible too to play through a campaign and not even go to every location on the map. I think it's actually kind of hard to go to every location on the map in a single campaign unless you try to do it.
I think to draw a generalization to give the question a bit more of a concrete answer, I'll say 20%. I'm comfortable with, assuming you play through a whole campaign, I'm comfortable with you missing about 20% of the content. That kind of 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Like you experience 80% of stuff, 20% remains unseen. Obviously, not everybody is going to 100% 100%. I shouldn't say that person's going to see more than 80% of the content, but not everybody is going to like completely finish the campaign. But for those of you who play through the whole thing and experience the whole story, I expect you'll see about 80% of the content.
Good percentage. Evan, can I talk to Evan for a second?
No, he's in the zone.
Yeah, Evan, I just remembered the.
Oh, I'm on. Sorry.
I want to show the people what you use to draw. Like, what are you actually drawing on right now, physically in the real world?
It's hilarious.
No, it's too embarrassing.
I think it's inspirational.
It's like I can describe it. I'm drawing on a postage stamp, basically.
Well, isn't it the Wacom bamboo tablet?
Yeah, and I have worn the nib down to like almost nothing.
Oh wow!
Wow, do you need new nibs? I got some nibs.
Well, this thing might be discontinued. It's tiny, and everyone's laughing at me now. All the artists I work with either work in Procreate on their iPad Pros, or like they have like what Corey has, a Cintiq, which is something I do want to get, but I just don't have time. I probably will get one, maybe early next year, and then
you won't like it.
And
you're so accustomed to this little bamboo pad, man.
I know I am. I am, but I need to get better, improve my game, and keep up with every other artist and not get left behind using old tech. So
well, I can hardly argue with the results, Evan. Like when I first visited your house and saw what you drew on, I was baffled.
Yeah.
He says a postage stamp, but like this, it is a very small Wacom tablet, and it is not only is his nib worn, but like the drawing surface is super
polished.
Yeah, like polished and like worn near the center. That thing is so heavily used, and like I have never gotten paid for my drawing in my life, and I have a bigger Wacom tablet than you do.
Well, it's funny because I even need to have this thing at a certain angle because I probably will have to relearn a lot of muscle memory stuff, because when I make a vertical or horizontal stroke, I'm probably actually crossing the pad at a slight angle because of the way it's situated on my desk. So there's a lot of weird stuff I've just like inured myself to, in this workspace. So it'll be very interesting when I upgrade.
Well, I mean, you can't argue with success. Your art is beautiful. Yeah. And like
Thank you.
If the postage stamp works,
Yeah.
For now it works until the nib just there's one atom left on the nib and that gets taken away by a breeze.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to aspiring artists out there, musicians, you don't need the expensive gear. You really don't. You can make some awesome stuff on the cheapest gear.
Yeah.
And Evan,
very true.
This next question, I think you could help answer. So listen. All right. It's
okay.
From Buffalo 7. It says, I've been looking at the cards a lot lately and really admiring the design and how natural they feel. I recently realized that a big reason why they feel that way to me is that it seems that pure white is used very sparingly. It seems like you had a strong visual theme for the art from the get-go, but when did you decide to have such a naturalistic feeling for the cards themselves? And was there a point when you consciously wanted to reduce the amount of white used?
I'm not sure if that's referring to the art or the graphic design, but either way, I've always avoided using pure white, especially in illustration work, because I'm always thinking of the light source, and to me, a light source is only white if it's an artificial environment like neon lights or something. I always use slightly off-white, yellow, or cool colors to reflect the environment. And when it comes to the graphic design, well, Andrew, you've designed some of the cards, and I just don't think white made it in there. It's just kind of a jarring color, I guess.
Lack of color.
It should be used sparingly.
The prototype graphic design, which hasn't evolved a whole lot past that, did have pure white, but that was only because I didn't want to take the time to change it, because we're just printing them out, just trying to do it as quickly as possible. But I think as soon as you did the pass and just added in a little bit of texture work, got rid of whatever white was there. But I feel like my feeling was, especially with the path cards, after you did your pass on the path card graphic design, just trying to make it, I feel like you did have like a very very intentionally were trying to make it feel natural.
Yeah,
cool.
And I'm not opposed to using white or black, pure white or pure black, but I think adding a little hue to either of those or the grayscale in between is always nice, especially when it complements the rest of the palette.
All right, I'm going to mute you, Evan, and your crickets. I hear crickets in the background.
Okay. I think it's my cricket.
Oh, they're your crickets.
I'm sure of it.
Okay, I'm muting you too.
I don't know if you heard the.
I have a crying baby in the background.
I don't know if you heard the baby bunny being murdered by one of my cats out there earlier.
That happened?
Oh, no. Was it loud enough to hear?
I could hear it on my monitor, yeah. So.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's I don't know why the bunnies keep like making their home and breeding around our house because our cats will just find them and eat them.
They're not that smart. Okay.
No, they're not. They're really
they're
not.
so cute. I have a nice family of bunnies.
And obviously they're delicious.
I
also.
guess. Do your cats actually eat them?
Yeah.
Wow, well, that's good. They don't just kill for sport.
Yeah, at least they
ruthless.
Yeah, well, it's better. So we have 3 cats. We have 2 younger cats, and they are not so good about eating what they kill. They'll just kind of play with it until it's dead.
Yeah.
And then just leave it. But our older cat, he's pretty big, muscular hunting cat, and he'll eat whatever he catches, and I think that's a little bit better.
Good boy. Yeah,
that was a lot better. Obviously, this is not going to waste.
Well, I think a hawk or something will probably come down, a crow, eat the remains from your. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Our next question. Our next question comes from Bao via email, and it is: when can we expect the release of the new TTS demo for Earthborne Rangers tabletop simulator? When is it?
That is an excellent question. That's an excellent question.
Well, it actually ties in a bit with when we talk about kind of our work and stuff. It is one of my priorities coming up here is to figure out our next demo experience as we're kind of wrapping up things on the core set and getting them buttoned down. We're looking at what part of the game we kind of want to extract and use as our next demo experience. And so it is something that we kind of have on our radar and we plan on creating for you all before the release of the game. But I think when exactly it comes out will depend on a few different factors. One, just like putting it together and getting it polished, and 2, making sure we work with our partners to get localized versions of it so that we can have the demo in all of our available languages at the same time. So we will have one. It will be coming, but we can't tell you exactly when.
Yeah,
cool.
As soon as we can do it. But as Fisher mentioned earlier in the show, we are very, very focused on just getting the game done at this point. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
I mean, the good thing is that we have a tabletop simulator environment that's pretty well set up. So I think the work will come in curating what that experience is and like what we want to make available.
Yeah, I would love to make it a bit more polished, but I might just have to find somebody who's very experienced at making polished TTS experiences and set them loose on it, because I'm at like my TTS knowledge limit, and I feel like my time might be better spent elsewhere. So if you're a TTS expert and have made like a really polished workshop, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, I'm also fine with having a utilitarian TTS demo, and then when we do our final for real TTS mod that you can purchase, then we can make that one fancy.
That's a good point. It is functional. Yeah. All our playtesters used our current environment.
It works. It's fine.
Yeah.
There's no automation or anything.
Yeah.
It functions.
Got to refill those energy tokens by hand. Right. The way Dad did it.
There is cool stuff coming, it sounds like. Coming very soon. And our final question comes from Martin. I like the way this is worded. Martin says, so, is there a print and play version of the demo as well?
Did Bao and Martin coordinate their emails?
No, these aren't even podcast questions. They're just questions that came to the info at.
Okay.
So I thought I'd address them both. So I in the larger email, so that little sentence is obviously just an excerpt from a larger email extolling the virtues of print and play demos. But I have been giving that some thought, and I think that if we're going to go so far as to make a tabletop simulator demo, I don't really see any reason to not make that also available for print and play. I think it would be pretty easy to put that on our website and allow people to, if they want to, instead of playing on TTS, or if you don't have TTS or don't want TTS, then you could print it out at home and play it. So yeah, I'm leaning very heavily toward doing that. I don't see a downside personally. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't see a downside either. I feel like I don't have like a ton of extensively researched data, but providing print and play stuff never really all the evidence I have seen suggests that providing print and play stuff does not eat into like sales or anything. Yeah. And like it just honestly it only helps people be able to try out the game. Yeah. So I'm in favor
people
of
that
it
may
personally.
not buy it at all.
So I think so was that
just
that
people that may not buy the game at all. The demo may inspire them to buy it.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's precisely the point that Martin was making in his emails. He's excited for the game, wants to show it off to some friends. So there you go. And I think that's awesome. And I really truly appreciate it. People who are enthusiastic and want to
spread the word, everybody.
Share it with their friends. That's awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. They can send a link. Here, print this out. Play it at home. They live across the sea. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, totally.
Well, cool. Thanks for all the awesome questions, everybody. Let's move on to the work stories. Evan, I think we're seeing right now what he's been up to, right?
Yeah.
Just keep watching his beautiful art.
A lot of art. It's almost done.
I mean,
it's almost done.
We also distracted him from art for a bit recently. One of the big things we've been working towards here is getting all of our files ready for our partners to start translating into their languages. And part of that is making sure that all the graphics are in place and everything, because while the translators just have to translate the text, they do have to take all our files and duplicate them into their language. And so then after they've made that duplication, if we're doing several other languages, each graphic design tweak we make past that is now like quadrupled because we have to make it in all the languages. So we distracted Evan from his art for a bit to kind of finish up various graphic design tasks and stuff as we were working towards that deadline.
Well, Fisher, Andrew, who wants to go first? Talking about your own work, not just Evan's.
Oh,
work.
I can go first. I guess I'm first.
Yeah, unusual. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's because we did that one, last time where it was only me, so I had to go and repopulate everything in the show notes.
Go first this time.
Yeah, I'll go first this time. But it all overlaps anyway.
Right.
So yeah, we've been working really hard on getting everything done. Our deadline for getting all of our files to the partners was on Friday, which we missed. And not too much. That's not too bad though. We'll make sure that we extend their deadlines accordingly, give them the extra time that we also took. But we got them almost everything late last night. Finished the rule book finally. So that was exciting. It was really just waiting on a few. So Fisher done a ton of work to it, and then I just needed to write a couple sections. And then I realized when it was almost done that it was the incorrect size. So I needed to resize the entire thing.
I swear I have a distinct memory of us updating that page size like 3 months ago, so I have no idea why it was the wrong one.
It's all right. So I was a little horrified at first, and I tried. InDesign has this function where you can just type in a new page size, and it'll, you just push the button, and it'll just like make everything magically go where it's supposed to go. We did that with the campaign guide, which was pretty easy because it's just flowed text, so it's just columns of text. And it just resized everything really easily. It was really nice. So I was in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, maybe this will work just as well. And I pushed the button, and the entire file just exploded. It went from
Yeah, I manually laid out that whole file, so like none of it is automated.
It went from 0 errors to 75 errors, and I was like, no. So I undid all that, and then just did it all by hand. And I was really, honestly, like really glad that happened, because it gave me time with each spread, just looking at it, and I ended up making a fair number of improvements, I think, to the layout. I added a bunch of art. I also had more ideas for writing because I was kind of stuck on how to do one of the sections, and I couldn't be I couldn't get inspired to write anything for it based on how it was originally outlined. And I just decided to not do what I had originally planned to put there and just do something else. And then it worked a lot better. So I don't think I would have come to that conclusion had I not had taken the time to kind of just manually adjust every spread to the correct paper size. So that's cool. So it was really cool to be done with it. And I finished the cover this morning. So that's pretty much done. Just have a couple renders to update once we have the final card images all done, and then we'll be all set. So that's pretty cool.
Very cool.
And then spent a lot of time on the campaign guide, and that's what Fisher's been spending a lot of time on since he's been back, and I spent a lot of time on while he was gone. And that thing is such a beast. It's so massive. Fisher, you described it yesterday as just this like endless. What? How do you describe it? You just keep pouring time into it. You just don't know where any of it goes.
Yeah, it's like a time black hole. Yeah, like I can work on it for hours and hours and hours, and then be like, like and feel like I'm making lots of progress in the moment, and then like I look back and I'm like, what did I do? This, like, because it's just this wall of text, right? So it's hard to visualize and conceptualize your progress, and so that thing is just. It's this giant time suck because you can get into the minutia of editing little entries and words and phrasings, but also there's this high level stuff of like structure and everything. And that thing and all of the journal entries interlink, a card calls on one, a timer calls on another, and they link to each other and then create outputs that have consequences in a future journal entry. And it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of, yeah,
but
it
it's
is going to
awesome.
be pretty awesome. So spent a lot of time on that, and then we're going to be finishing that up this week. So I still have a fair amount of editing and writing to do in that too. So that'll be the rest of the week for me, and then we'll be done. We had everything off to the partners, and then we'll start thinking about. Well, then we'll start placing art and doing all the other things we need to do that aren't critical for partners. So there's plenty to do in the next couple months, including laying out the World of Earthborne Rangers lore and art book, which will probably be no small task on its own. So lots of work to do.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Do that. That's I've laid out. I should probably know the exact number, but I think it's thousands of pages of RPGs at this point. If I can do one thing, it's layout, text, and art.
All right, cool, man. All right.
Yeah,
Sweet.
I'm pretty fast at it.
Thank you for nominating yourself to do that.
And that's like a Kickstarter.
I also wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's an add-on.
Okay.
It's an add-on.
Cool.
Art book. We'll get you a copy of the art book.
Hell yeah! It's not in the contract, but
it's not.
Verbal
but
agreement.
We'll get one for you anyway. Your art will be nice and big in there. It's gonna be a half page. The way I have it laid out is all the beings and the features that we have in the that we have entries for in the art and lore book will be a big half page.
It's gonna have every card, every.
Not everyone, no. It'll have it has a lot of the terrain sets. So like all the terrain set animals and plants, the highlights of those will be featured in the lore book. And then we'll have, individual locations, the pivotal locations. We'll talk about those places. So you won't find a lot of Ranger card art in there. There'll be some, but it'll be mostly locations and beings and features. It's going to be the most of it, and then we'll have some a few pages dedicated to concept art and that process.
That's so
things like that.
So cool. Excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to look really nice in the end. So I wanted to give like a very short North American manufacturing update. It's not great. That's what I'll put out there. It's not great. We chased down some leads. They didn't necessarily lead nowhere, but most of what we've found has been more future planning. Let's just put it that way. Like, it's not possible to do in any reasonable amount of time, but given longer period of time, we can make it happen. So while it might not work out for this first print run, we are at least making inroads to make it more possible down the road, which is cool. So like I've been saying from the beginning, my goal is to find someone who is a partner, really, who's like really interested in helping us make this a reality and being there with us and shares in the vision. And in doing this, I think that we've had some promising leads that we might actually be able to find someone who fits that bill. But doing it in any kind of reasonable amount of time right now is really challenging in North America in particular. So we have one last kind of gasp effort that there were meetings happening at Gen Con, which was this past weekend, where the consulting firm that I've been using, who's been talking to some manufacturers on our behalf, had meetings at Gen Con with people and was trying to get some good solid answers on our like compromised solution. So I have a meeting with them on Friday. So I'm hoping to hear some good news, or at least if we don't necessarily get good news on North American manufacturing, at least that will be the end of the discussion for now. And we'll be able to decide one way or the other if we're going to do any of that here or if it's all going to be in Europe. So that is where that is standing. More exciting, though, is that we officially now have a French language partner on board.
Ayo.
Yay.
Hey.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we'll be working with a Belgian company called Intrafin. Yeah, so they're really excited about the project. We've been talking with them for months. I want to say it's been at least 5 or 6 months since they've they first expressed interest. So they signed. They got on board just about a week and a half ago. So that's really exciting. So the goal is to get them, obviously on board for the first print run. They feel like they can do it, which is amazing if they can get it all done in the next couple months, which is the plan. So that's really cool. So what that means for our French backers is unfortunately, since we're signing a deal with them, they're purchasing a number of copies from us. We can't undercut their sales by offering copies of the game in French, unfortunately. But pretty exciting to have French language edition out there. And it's cool to have a partner who really believes in what we're doing and really believes in the mission. So that's pretty great.
So great.
And that's
awesome.
all I've got.
We have breaking news here. Evan would like to have is this like a live art direction session about Quisi's favorite snack? Is that the piece, Quisi? Is that the piece you're working on right now?
Quisi.
Oh yeah. Evan,
you're gonna have to unmute him
Yeah. So I asked that question. It was like, oh wait, we're streaming.
No,
this is
cool.
really dumb.
If you want to talk about.
So we talked about what this snack actually is made of in a meeting several weeks ago, and I can't remember, but it's like, I think we arrived at some decision, but I don't remember that. So I'm just laying down.
For those of you listening,
color
Evan is working on a piece that's a close up of a hand holding these 3 balls of food. I assume it's a snack.
Yeah, they look kind of like like those energy balls. Have you ever gotten those? You know,
do you guys know what? Have you guys heard of pemmican?
No,
they're kind of chocolatey.
Oh yeah,
they're really good.
Oh, like high density carb food or something
for hiking and stuff. That's what they kind of remind me. That's what they kind of remind me of. They also kind of look a little bit like chocolate bonbons right now.
I seem to recall the red that I'm painting right now was maybe some sort of maple or something. I don't know. I can't remember, but I figured I'd just start laying down.
Yeah, I think as long as they look delicious, I think is really all we're really going for.
Well, I was thinking that
I don't think.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to say this. The red thing, the red part of it, I was imagining as like a glazed. Had it would have a glazed look, so it'd be more reflective or something.
Yeah,
gummy looking.
I don't think Aura mentions the food she feeds Quisi, so I think you're somewhat free to let your imagination run wild on this one.
Well,
Quisi is a character. She's actually, for people who played the demo, she is the character I believe you save in our original our Kickstarter demo of the game, and she is a reoccurring character in the game who can show up if you're in my play session all the time and steal your stuff.
Yeah, she's just like a precocious adventuring little girl who's like out in the valley exploring all the time, and her mother is constantly looking for her.
And she's either endearing or annoying depending on your perspective.
She's pretty great. She can also squash bugs for you, which is pretty fun.
Evan, when I saw those balls, I was reminded of this stuff that I learned about when I was a teacher's assistant in 7th grade, learning about the voyageurs. And their favorite snack was called pemmican.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pemmican? Yeah, I was wondering if you're going to say pemmican.
And dried meat and dried berries. I dropped a picture of it in the Discord, and it kind of looks just like what you're making there, so...
Yeah, we had a card that was pemmican.
There it is.
Ooh.
Yeah, wow. Cherry moss pemmican was something that Sam had written at one point or something.
Not these balls, though.
And I had to look up pemmican for that very reason.
I hadn't either before that class. Yeah.
The berries and meat sound jarring at first. But actually, Sam made some pemmican for us a while back. I was really skeptical when she made it, but it's pretty decent.
You get hungry enough to eat anything.
Yeah,
jerky and berries.
Well, you sometimes pair like kind of denser fruits with meat. You can have like cherry on meat, or like you do citrus with chicken.
That sounds great to me.
So like it works. It works.
Andrew, what are you working on?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, other Andrew already hit on quite a bit of like what I've been doing. So obviously, I was in Tanzania, which wasn't a great time trip, but because of the opportunity I had to visit Sam at her archaeological site, it was basically the only time it could happen. But because of that, I haven't been, I was gone for a bit, and then I did do some work on the plane, and as I got back last week and kind of barreling into this deadline, we got everything to the partners yesterday. So besides the last work, we need to do the campaign guide. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. It was a bit of a whirlwind coming right back from the trip and barreling right into work. But I think we, for the most part, got things in. So that was good. So that was it for me for this last week. But coming up here, I'm pivoting to. We've got some more work to do on the campaign guide and other stuff to do on the core set besides what we've already done. But beyond that, I'm pivoting over to helping out with expansion content, and we're kind of moving forward on the first campaign expansion, and then also looking forward, as I mentioned earlier, to the demo. I'm going to need to kind of figure out how we want to break off the content and kind of create our demo experience and what we want to share versus keep spoiler free. So I'm going to kind of cordon off that curated experience for our upcoming demo. So that's the stuff I have coming up. But otherwise, I think we've covered most of what I've been working on.
Sounds like you guys are busy at work. Did we decide on Evan's question? Was his question for us answered about the balls? I feel like I cut us off.
I think it was a satisfactory answer.
It was decided.
Delicious. Doesn't matter what they are. Make
they look good. All right, so then we're gonna move.
It's a pretty
good
card too.
Yeah, it's a cool card. You've accomplished so much in this time. It's like went from just line drawing to pretty much blocking in all the colors there. All right, let's move on to stuff we're into. I haven't been really that obsessed with anything personally. I did, however, play this game called Killer Queen. It's an arcade game. Has anybody heard of it or played it? Yeah, Fisher, you like it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've actually played it on a cabinet at
That's right. That's where I played
it. Down. Yep, that's the place.
Is that a four-player game?
It's for those of you not in Minnesota, it's a arcade bar here in Uptown.
Chain. I think there's a few
in the Twin Cities.
Other up downs across the country, maybe.
Oh, are there?
Yeah, okay. It's a multiplayer game. You play as these little bear bee creatures, 5 versus 5. There's 2 big screens, kind of head to head. It's very fun. You're all squished up against your controls, and I loved it. It's a little intimidating. It feels like a sport. Everyone else playing seemed to have a lot better grasp on it, so it's a bit intimidating, but it's super fun in-person game. I don't really know what more to say about it. Check it out if you can. I think it's just an indie game, so there's not many of these cabinets around the country. There's also a Steam version of it.
Yeah, they made a Steam version, but the charm is really in the arcade presentation, and it's also a very modern arcade. So playing a physical version of it with friends is really awesome.
Be there, be with people, talk, laugh. Yeah. And it is a huge component of the game is verbal communication with your teammates, because you're constantly changing your strategy. There's three ways you can win. So, if one's not going well, you got to shift gears instantly, and you need to talk to be able to do that. It is.
It sounds awesome.
Andrew, I'm sorry you're cutting out a little bit again. Hopefully it gets
better.
Geez. I know. Geez. We'll keep moving ahead. I'll tell you about the other thing I like, which is The Rehearsal on HBO. Anybody watch that show? It's from Nathan Fielder, who did Nathan for You on Comedy Central.
Oh, yes, isn't that show's like super awkward, right?
But he takes it to the next.
Is The Rehearsal too?
There's 4 episodes out so far, and each one is more brilliant than the last. It goes to some very strange places. The premise of the show, the basic premise is that it's kind of structured like a reality show where he recreates these situations for people who are, let's say, nervous about confronting a friend about a lie they've been telling them or something. So Nathan will come in and like recreate an entire bar, like down to the glasses. Like, it's crazy the details he puts into recreating these environments. Then he gets actors to pretend to be the other people, and it's just super bizarre, and it goes off the rails in so many weird directions. Highly recommend The Rehearsal. Check that out. If you didn't like Nathan For You, you're not going to like this, but I think it's a hilarious show and also just genius.
I'm the kind of person who flees the room when things get too awkward on the television, so I'm not sure if I could handle it.
I guess I kind of get that, and I kind of don't get it. Just remember that it's not happening to you. It's just someone else. It already happened.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I have heard that there have been studies that have shown that your brain can't actually comprehend the difference between something that you watch on a screen and something that is actually happening to you.
Right.
Kind of in the same way that, like, when you recall an event or you have a memory and you focus on it, your brain doesn't know the difference between whether it's happening to you in that moment or you just remembering it. So that's why it's so detrimental to you to focus on like negative things, focus on like terrible memories, like people experience trauma, you just keep reliving those moments. Like it's like you're just doing it over and over again. So like I could totally understand Fisher's desire to leave the room when cringe humor becomes too much, because I feel that same way too. Like when I'm watching cringy, like real uncomfortable humor, you could just feel it kind of twisting up inside of your body, like it is actually happening to me.
Yeah.
It's very
maybe I'm just more okay with uncomfortable situations. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's possible.
I just laugh.
No, I envy that. I could use more of that, just being okay with it.
Right. I think I've got it, but I do tell myself, I'm like, okay, it's okay. This is just a TV show.
Yeah,
it'll be fine. But yeah, I get that. I get a little uncomfortable at times with stuff on TV. It's also that what you're saying though, Andrew, reminds me of how like watching sitcoms can make you feel less alone because you feel like those are your friends.
Yeah,
I've heard for lonely
or listening to
folks.
podcasts.
Yeah, we're your friend. We're your friend, guys. Cool. Who else has something fun to talk about?
Yeah, I moved myself up so that we could, in the show on a showstopper with Fisher talking about Tanzania. So
all right, cool.
Yeah, so I've we're continuing our Kingdom Death Monster campaign. My friends and I, we just played our third session last night, and so far, I think it's going way better than it did the first time through. I'm sure we're all gonna get mutilated in a couple sessions when the butcher shows up, but so far, man, we got that white lion on lock. Just hunting white lions.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I've also been poking around with
that's a classic.
Fallout New Vegas this past couple weeks. Yeah, I've poked at that game several times since I played it the first time. Like 10 years ago, whenever it came out. But this latest time, it kind of captured me again. I think maybe enough time has passed where I've kind of forgotten everything that happens, or it just struck me in the right way. That game is great. Have you played it, Fisher?
At this point,
yeah, it's. I played one of the early locations that you can find, this Repcon rocket facility, and it's a really great microcosm of how they do the quest designs in that game, where there's all sorts of different options based on how you encounter the different components of the quest. Like you could find the kind of the antagonist of that facility. You could find them first, and they give you a different quest, and it kind of recontextualizes the entire thing. Versus if you find the good guys of that quest first, and then they tell you to go and get rid of the antagonists. And there's also, and it leads to new, like more stuff, and then like leads to this like additional stories, and it just reminded me of how cool the writing was in that game and how cool the quest design is in it. is my favorite Fallout game.
Yeah, their kind of non-linear approach to quest design of making sure that you can just approach it from any angle you want is pretty unprecedented. Like, I think that was the peak of Obsidian, was when Obsidian was kind of doing this where they often picked up from other studios, mainly BioWare, and then kind of applied their more free-form experimental RPG and nonlinear story design to these established RPG systems. Like, it's just excellent. They've obviously done good work since then, but I feel like as they started getting distracted with like actually delivering a whole product, they couldn't focus as much attention on that storytelling stuff, and so you don't get the like just amazing innovative approach that you got with games like New Vegas, where a lot of the work was already done, so they could just focus on the storytelling.
Yeah, and I don't know how much turnover they've had as far as like their writers and their creative teams. Like, I don't know if the people who were at Obsidian 10 years ago are still the people who are there. I have no clue. But thankfully, Fallout New Vegas exists, and you can play it because it's
on
pretty
Xbox
awesome.
Game Pass.
Yeah, totally, and it probably runs really well, I would imagine. I'm playing it on my 360.
So. You still have an operational 360 sitting around?
Wow.
Yeah, man. Totally, yeah. Sebastian was playing Beyond Good and Evil on it just tonight. Yeah. Got to keep those things alive. This past weekend, this Saturday, we went to go see Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian.
I don't know him.
If you guys are familiar with him at all.
I'm not.
Fluffy, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to Treasure Island, which is a casino out here, and he was playing outside, and it was raining on Saturday, so sat through some drizzle. It wasn't too terrible, but man, I haven't been to see a comedian in forever. I think I've been to like a comedy club like once in my entire life. So seeing stand up, and then seeing stand up at this big like outdoor venue with so many people, I had no idea he was so popular. It was really fun. It was pretty cool. He's I think a really entertaining comedian. He's a phenomenal storyteller. He does great voices and sound effects, and he's just so demonstrative and fun. And
cool.
Yeah, it was a really good time. And then the last thing I want to talk about is because I'm into changing the way people in our industry do products. And I was at Target the other day hunting for Pokemon with Sam.
Yeah.
But we went to the game section, and I saw that the Ravensburger games on the shelf there at Target did not have shrink wrap, which I thought was awesome. So I wanted to give some props to Ravensburger for ditching shrink wrap.
How do they hold the game
That's
together?
pretty awesome.
How do they hold the box together? What do they do?
Tape. It's a little sticker instead.
Okay, that's great.
So yeah, so it's still plastic, but it's far less plastic.
Right.
And those boxes are definitely not recyclable as is, because they have a pretty sturdy finish on them. But I thought it was it's pretty awesome. Like they were the only kind of big name publisher games on those shelves that were not in shrink wrap. So I thought that was pretty great. So good job, Ravensburger.
Good job.
Yeah. proud of you.
Man, they're listening right now and just feeling so good about themselves. All right, Andrew, the moment you've all been waiting for, the climb to the top.
Yeah, so obviously I
did you survive?
Nope, I'm dead on the top of Kilimanjaro. So spent a couple weeks in Tanzania, and it was really awesome. Traveling wasn't awesome. I had a lot of trouble in the airports. On the way out the night before I left, my power went all night, a person lost control of their car and crashed through my back fence into my backyard. This is the night I was going to leave. I know, yeah. I have a picture of a full sedan sitting in the middle of my backyard, and my power was out, unrelated. And then, like, on the way back, my flight was delayed, and they lost my bag, and like, so travel was awful. And I've heard that the airlines are really struggling with number of employees and stuff. So apparently, this is a shared experience with a lot of people. So if you have also
a lot of people have sedans crashing through their backyards before their flights.
The delayed flight part. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so some of the stuff surrounding the trip was a lot, but the trip itself was really good. As we mentioned, I went out to Tanzania. My wife, Sam, is an archaeologist, and she is working at a site out in kind of western Tanzania out there. And so she's worked at it a bit pre-pandemic, and then they took a couple years off, and this is their kind of first year back working at the site since the pandemic. And so she goes out for a month or two every year, and it's a long time to be away. And so this year I kind of had the opportunity to be able to go out and actually visit her at her site, see her while she's gone for like 2 months, and then while I was out there I did a couple other things. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I started the trip by driving out there. I did land in like over by Kilimanjaro, so out in the east, and I drove across the country for like 5 hours to get to Sam's site. She's out past Babati, for those of you who know Tanzanian geography. I drove with just a driver we found through the site director. He was actually really cool. We stopped at a couple markets and stuff, and it was really kind of nice driving across the country for 5 hours. It's a very different culture than here, and having somebody to kind of like show you the ropes and like go to places that a lot of other tourists aren't necessarily going. As we drove out to way past like where like a lot of the tourists go to, like out to the Serengeti. So we were kind of past that area, and so it was kind of cool to be able to experience the culture a little bit outside of the touristy zones. And then once I got to Babati, we took a off-road vehicle out to the archaeological site, which was pretty wild. Like, we're in this car, like bucking all over the place. It's kind of slightly in the middle of nowhere. It's just near this small village that they work with the locals there and like employ a bunch of them at the site. Their archaeological site is pretty cool. Like, archaeology in Africa especially has not a great rap, especially from like the last century. A lot of like British people rolling in, digging stuff up and leaving. And so her site is trying to change that. They're working really closely with the government and with local professors and local students to make sure they're doing it like with Tanzania and bringing like their resources and money from these American universities out to Tanzania to kind of help support and train them. And they're working with the local villagers to kind of staff the site, and they're building a school there in the village as well. And so it's pretty cool. So I got to hang out at the site for a couple days, witness some archaeological excavation, which was pretty cool. It was mostly just me sitting there reading a book while they all did science. So it was actually kind of relaxing, but pretty cool. And I got to like attend a meeting of the village. Like we went out to like the village center and like they had a village meeting and introduced us to everybody, which was very cool. It was all in Swahili, so I had to get kind of a translation of what was going on, but it was a really neat experience. And even though we were sitting out in the dirt under this big tree, like doing this meeting, it otherwise really resembled like a town hall meeting from Parks and Rec, with just people pointlessly bickering about like infrastructure issues. So, even though the setting was very different, it was basically the same thing.
Wow.
Anyway, so that was a really good experience. And then after that, I drove back out to the east of Tanzania and climbed Kilimanjaro, which was a very cool experience. I went with a group. You actually, in Tanzania, you have to go with a guide and porters. It's required by law. You're not allowed to like enter the park around the mountain unless you are with a guide. It's partially to make sure that stupid tourists don't tear up the mountain or get themselves injured, but also just to bring money to the local economy as well. So I went with a group. Originally, I was going to go. I was just talking to a guide, but I kind of thought, it was just me and like 3 Tanzanian guys. It would be a little like awkward by day 6 or whatever. So I ended up finding a tour group where you could like sign up for a time slot, and basically you and several other people would all go together. So I'd be able to kind of like have other people to chat with just beyond like our guides. So I ended up in a group of 14 people, including myself. And it was really good. They were almost all solo travelers. A couple couples. There was like a pair of brothers and a pair of newlyweds on their honeymoon to Kilimanjaro, apparently. And the group really made the trip because we all got along really well and were very like supportive and social, and it was really fun. So I did a 6-day trek up the mountain. Usually the shortest you can do it in, like as somebody from outside, is 5 days. Theoretically, the world record, I think, is 6 hours up and down, but I don't know how that's even physically possible.
What?
Yeah. He like...
What?
Running?
He apparently...
no. You driving?
He apparently just sprinted up and sprinted down again. So the mountain's like kind of a big oval. So there's actually like... There's kind of the short side that you can just go up and down. But like somebody like me, if I went up, the altitude would probably kill me. So instead, you do this 6-day trek where you go along the long side and you do a nice hike, and you kind of go up high during the day, and then you hike down at night to sleep. And that kind of helps you acclimatize and gets your body used to the altitude so that you're prepared to go up to 19,300 feet on the final day. Well, the second to final day. So I went along this newer route called Lemosho, which is over on the west, and did a 6-day trek. I was actually with a 7-day group, but the first day I just did their first 2 days at once to catch up with them. And then, it went pretty well. I was, for acclimatization and stuff, I was on a drug called Diamox. It's pretty highly recommended if you're not acclimatized to high altitude. It's like a diuretic that kind of helps you absorb the oxygen. All but one of us were on Diamox, and it really helped. The person who wasn't did really feel it the day we went up. So we hiked for a few days, and then day 5, night of day 4, morning of day 5, we go to bed at like 3 p.m. We get done hiking, and then you try to sleep, and you wake up at 11 p.m. to start the climb. So 11 p.m. we ate some dinner / breakfast, and then midnight we start the climb up the mountain. Because it takes about, from base camp, it takes about, well, we took about 6.5 hours to get to the summit. You can theoretically, I think, to be a little cocky, I think I probably could have done it in about like 4 hours, is my guess. I do a decent amount of hiking. I think I was definitely, I was worried I was going to be underprepared, and I think I was a little overprepared. I definitely could I was still not as winded as some of the people we were with. But anyway, so you start at midnight, you hike up, so you get there kind of in the morning as the sun is rising. The weather gets more unpredictable throughout the day, so you want to get up early on top, because then you also have to come down. And then you don't want to sleep at base camp altitude, because it's still pretty high up. So after you get back down to base camp, you actually hike even further down to sleep for the night. So that's part of the reason you start so early. The summit night was pretty rough. You're just like hiking up, right? And it's pitch black. You all have your headlamps on, and it's getting colder and colder as you get higher. And I think we got down to, I don't remember what it is in Fahrenheit, but like minus 27 Celsius, I think. So it's below 0 Fahrenheit. We were looking at that horizon, waiting for the sun to rise, because like it was just getting colder and colder as we went up, and it was Like we were just putting on layers and layers, and we were running out. Like, you know, there's only so much you can put on, and but once the sun comes up, you're at such high altitude, it really cooks you. So like that kind of saved us from the cold. But when you're up there, like everything, the altitude, you're like walking at like, you know, those people in malls where they're walking really slow and you really want to go around them. That's your speed at all times, or you get winded up at the top of the mountain, and your shoes feel like they weigh like 5 times as much as normal. And yeah, but
for how much of the hike did you have that sensation? Like the last hour?
Yeah, how much? Well, so you get, the higher in altitude you get, the harder and harder it gets. So our first acclimatization hike, a couple days in, you could kind of feel that sensation a bit where it's like kind of hard to breathe. But then you kind of get used to that. So then you actually base camp later at that same height you acclimatized to. And, you know, you can't run. Nobody's sprinting anywhere. Like if you run for even a second, you're completely out of breath. But you can operate. And so on the actual summit day, it wasn't until like the last couple hours that it really got like, you know, tunnel vision, just focus forward. So the last, like, you know, let's call it like 1,000 feet were probably the really rough part. But overall, I mostly dodged like altitude sickness stuff. Between the Diamox and just like all of the prep I've done from all the hiking and everything, I got like a little bit of a pinch of a headache, but nothing too bad.
Okay.
We
lost
Andrew.
Andrew. We've been having some troubles. Okay, he's back.
I'm back. My thing stopped recording again. That's all right. I wasn't talking.
Cool.
Then we summited. It was beautiful. I actually stayed up there for a couple hours and went and saw glaciers and stuff. And then we came down, and you actually hike even further down, so you're not sleeping at like base camp altitude. And then you head out. And then you can go down the short side of the mountain, because going down's fine, right? It's only going up that you want to take your time on. So we go up the long side of the mountain, then we go down the short side of the mountain and go stay at a resort and have a warm shower. It was nice.
Ooh. Must have felt so good.
Man, that sounds amazing.
Have you seen Rocky
Yes, I
IV,
have.
Fisher? I was picturing your training similar to Drago. When they had that montage where Rocky is training in the cabin.
He's like training in the rough American wilderness, and then Drogo is.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was in Russia. Right, he was training in Russia, like that's all they gave him was a little shack. But then Drago was training with like an oxygen mask on an elevated treadmill, and he's sprinting, and that's what you were doing. And then he showed up, and you overtrained, and it was just a breeze.
I wouldn't call it a breeze, but I definitely like, you know, it's not like I wouldn't call the experience a breeze, but because I was with a larger group of people, you know, I wasn't faster than the bear, but I was faster than my friend, to use that. You know, some of the people I was with hadn't done as much hiking as I had. So like we were just going at a pace that was pretty comfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Did the training with the books in the backpack
I'm not sure.
help?
I assume so. I forget if I mentioned on the podcast, but I filled my backpack with books to like do training hikes with like a ton of weight on my back.
It's heavy too.
Yeah,
I picked that thing up. You weren't joking around. There's a lot of books in that.
But it's
backpack.
funny because you don't actually carry that much up the mountain, because a lot of your gear is carried by porters while you're actually doing the hike, which is another thing that threw me, because like all my other hikes, I carry all my own gear. And like a lot of times I was like, I want to carry my gear. Can I carry my gear? And they get mad at you. They're like, no, I'm carrying it. I think they, you know, because any tourist can sign up to try to climb Kilimanjaro. And so, you know, they have no idea where you're at physically. And so they want to be really careful. Like the guides, they do medical checks. They check our blood ox every morning, every night. All the guides carry oxygen. And so all of the guides and porters are very conscious and like wanting to keep you from endangering yourself as much as possible. And like it's understandable. It takes a toll. We were eating a ton of food, like painfully full at every meal. And one of the guys on the trip lost 10 pounds still. Like so it's like it really puts your body through the ringer. So it's understandable that like the guides and porters are very insistent that you take it as easy as possible.
Yeah. So after all that high altitude hiking, when you came back and you ran on the treadmill, did you find that it was way easier? Your hemoglobin was absorbing oxygen more?
Well, so it's kind of hard to tell because I have what I don't know if this is an actual term, but our group called it the Killy cough. It's very dusty up there and very dry. And so lots of people got bloody noses, and like we all developed this cough, and we think it was due to like we inhaled so much dust. Like a lot of people were wearing like gaiters and stuff over their mouths just to like filter some, but we inhaled so much dust that like we all had this kind of cough when we got off the mountain. And I still feel it like when I run. If I try to take a really deep breath, I can feel like where all that dryness and dust was. So any gain I got from the altitude was probably cut into by the Killy cough.
Yeah, wasn't that kind of fast? Like in snow, it's not fun to be coughing and have dust in your lungs, but you got a little Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, it's a little poetic in a way.
Well, that is an epic story, Fisher. Is there more? Is there more you wanted to add?
No, that's about it. Like I said, my flight home was frustrating, so I won't end on that. Overall, like it was a pretty amazing experience. I definitely wouldn't like do it again. I do plan on climbing more mountains, but I will likely do other ones and like, find new experiences. But like to people who that type of challenge interests you, I think it was an amazing experience. Tanzania is beautiful. And Kilimanjaro is a really nice intro mountain because the Discord was laughing about some quote like about it being a small hill or something, but slightly taken out of context. What I was trying to say is it's not a non-technical climb. You're not using ice picks or climbing gear at all. You're just hiking basically. There's a little bit of scrambling one day, but otherwise it's just a hike and it's just a fit test of your physical ability. So if climbing mountains interests you, but you kind of want something that's like a low barrier to entry, at least technical skill wise, it's a great place to start. So I would recommend it to people, but it is solid type 2 fun. Type 1 fun being the kind of thing that's fun in the moment, and type 2 fun being the thing that's kind of miserable in the moment, but you're really glad you did it afterwards. So just be mentally prepared for that.
Well, that's the show, everybody. That's all the time we have. The producers are shouting in my earpiece right now. We're over time.
Yeah, thank you for humoring my Tanzania story on this probably extra long episode.
It's fantastic.
Fantastic, guys. Okay, well, that's the show, everybody. Keep reaching out to us with your questions. And thanks for listening and watching week after week. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.